Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to print with plants on the gel plate. It's going to be a back to basics tutorial. So if you're a beginner and have never used a gel plate before, or if you've never printed with plants before, then this is going to be a great place to start. I'm going to cover four main things. I'm going to cover the materials that you need for gel printing with. I'm going to do a little bit on paper. I'm going to cover plant selection and of course the printing techniques, and that's what I'm going to demo today. So the demo I'm going to do is this very simple print of a hibiscus leaf. It's just two colours and will cover basically the basics that you need to do. But once you've got the basics down, learning how to print with botanics is really a great skill to have. You can overlap your prints, you can create interesting backgrounds to go with them, you can use plants as masks, you can incorporate them into cards or collage work. So for example, this collage here of the kookaburra, I made the entire background up using gel printed gum leaves. So yeah, really interesting the things you can do with the techniques. If you're enjoying my videos, then please give me a thumbs up. You can comment down below, you can ask any questions that you might have down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Even better, you can subscribe to my channel and then you won't miss any future videos that I make on all these awesome techniques. I've also got a newsletter, so please sign up to that and we can keep in touch. My name is Amber from Amber Benison Art. Enough talking, let's get on with the tutorial. So let's jump straight in with a quick overview of the materials that you need. The first thing obviously that you need is a gel plate. So this is like a squishy gelatin pad that you use to put the paint on and transfer the image onto your paper. So this is basically your printing plate. To spread the paint, you're going to need a roller. A 6-inch roller is a good size to start with. Ideally you want a soft rubber roller. Speedball make a great one. But you can also get cheaper ones off Amazon. Ideally, again, it's best to have two, one for warm colours and one for cool colours, but not essential when you're starting off. I always keep a book or a scrap piece of paper by my side, and that is used for cleaning off the brayer in between colours. So, and this paper can also be used as background papers or collage papers, so nothing gets wasted. And then a quick overview of acrylic paints. The best acrylic paint is whatever you've got. So if you're just starting out and you have acrylic paint, give that a go first before you jump in and buy new paints. Paints come in different ranges. You can get cheap craft paint that will work on the gel plate. This is a mid-range paint and this is an artist quality paint, so a little bit more expensive. In the mid-range, there's Amsterdam Standard Series, for example, or Liquitex Basics. They're both very similar paints and lots of people use them on the gel plate and get really good results. For a better quality paint, you've got your golden range. This is a golden fluid acrylic. It's more runny, has less viscosity than these paints. It's very nice to use on the gel plate, high pigment loading, so you get really vibrant colours and great light fastness. So I like to use the golden fluid acrylics, particularly when I'm making collage papers for my fine art collages, but not essential. Just keeping it simple, go with the paint you've got or invest in something like these brands. And finally, you're going to need some plants to print with. And in the next clip, I'll tell you a little bit more about how I select my plants. So how to select your plants. The first thing when you're starting out, I think it's easiest if you pick plants that are quite soft. So they've got quite soft leaves and they're going to push down really nice and flat onto the gel plate. You don't want anything with any sharp bits, any thorns or spikes that might damage your gel plate. So what we've got here is this hibiscus leaf. And if you can see on the back, it's got some quite nice veining, which should be picked up well by the gel plate. I've got some rosemary again, that will push down nice and flat. This mint has got some really good veining on the leaf. And there's some thyme, a chive flower. So even though that's got shape to it, when it's down on the gel plate, it will push down quite flat. If you're wanting to work with leaves that are a bit firmer in texture, and you're having trouble to get them to lay down flat on the plate, another option is to actually press them. So these gum leaves, I've pressed under some books, which has made them go nice and flat, so they're much easier to print with. Same in particular, you see there's this flower structure here, or the buds of the flowers. They're in quite a 3D format when they're growing on the tree, but having pressed them flat down like that, I can then get a really good representation of those when I'm printing them on the gel plate. So I tend to keep the ones that I can in a book like this. So I've got these gorgeous Banksia leaves. Oh, and that's another thing that's worth noting. It can be quite good to find leaves that have got some defects to them. So this has been nibbled on by insects. And that actually will give you a print quite an interesting look too. Okay, so we're going to start with a layer of phthalo blue. We're going to do this nice and simply, just 2 colours. So first off, we need to roll this out over the plate. Now, a good technique for rolling out is you go down and up and down like in a circular motion. That helps the paint spread nice and evenly over the plate. So I tend to work in 2 directions until I've got a nice, smooth, even coverage. You don't want too much paint down for doing this. If you've got too much, then the plant has a tendency to move and you don't get as much definition. On the print. Okay, so here's our leaf. I'm going to lay it down. Definitely want to try and get those little holes in. I'm going to put this piece of paper on the top and push the plant down into the plate. Now this piece of paper is serving 2 purposes. One, it's pushing the plant into the plate to hopefully get all that veining transferred into the acrylic paint. And 2, it's picking up all the unwanted paint that's around the leaf. What you want to do is feel for those stalks through the paper and push firmly there, and that'll make sure that you get those defined. And we had those insect holes as well around here, so hopefully we've picked those up as well. And I'm going to pick it up carefully. It's stuck quite tightly. There we go. If you see bits that you've sort of missed and you want to try and pick up a bit more paint, you can push it back down again and try, but if it's already dried, you won't get it. So that outline is the start of another print. So what I would do is use that again and put more layers on top of it until that itself will create a nice collage paper. So I'll put that to the side for now. Pick up the plant. There you go, looks like we've got some nice leaf definition on that. Okay. Now these bits of paint around the edge, I would normally just leave those on because I quite like that. I think it gives the print character. But if you didn't want that and you wanted to remove it, it's quite easily done with some tape. Use any tape. This is some masking tape I just happen to have on my desk. But if you stick that over and pull it up, it'll remove any of those bits of paint that you don't want in your final print. Let's go for a fresh piece. Hopefully you don't get too close to your print and start removing that. This wouldn't be ideal. Let's take a bit of that off. I don't need it all gone. There we go, that'll do. So before we do the next stage, the most important thing is to make sure that this layer is dry. Otherwise it'll smudge when we try and roll the next one on top. To be honest, it's only a thin layer, and by the time I've done all that picking up, it has pretty much dried. But for the sake of demo, what I would normally do is use my hairdryer just to speed up the drying. You need to use your hairdryer on a cool setting, otherwise it might damage the plate. So I'd just give it a quick whiz like that, just to be 100% sure that it's all dry. So next thing is we want to put another layer of acrylic paint on top of there in order to be able to lift that off the gel plate and onto a piece of paper. The paper I'm going to use is just standard printer paper. It's really good for learning on. It's cheap, it's pretty robust, doesn't tend to split on the plate very easy, and it tends to pull really nice prints. So I'll put down some Titan Buff next. And I need to spread that nice and evenly all over the image. You don't want this to be too thin. This is in effect going to act as the glue to stick the dried image onto our final sheet of paper. So a nice even coat. Roll off the excess into my scrap paper, and then I'm going to come in with this printer paper, try to not miss, lay it down and then push it in really firmly. Run your hands all over the surface to make sure it's got really good contact at all parts. You need to make sure it's stuck into that layer of paint in order to pick up all the image below. Once you're giving that a really good push in, the most reliable method is to make sure that this is totally dry before you start to pull the paper off. So again, I speed up that process using the hairdryer on a cool setting. So here's a tip. One way you can gauge whether that paint's dry or not is if you put your hands on the back and the paper feels cold, there's a good chance that the paint is still wet. If it just feels like room temperature, then hopefully it should be dry. So let's flip it over and see what we've got. Yep, looks like we've got a reasonable image transfer there. So I often keep an acetate sheet just on the back of my gel print. It helps you sort of maneuver it around and maybe flip it over if you want to have a look at the other side and see how your print's progressing. So now we're going to pull this gel plate off the paper. And that's another tip. I think it's always better, if you can, to pull the gel plate off the paper as opposed to the paper off the gel plate, because that sort of stretching movement as the gel plate bends up really helps with the paint release. And pull it back nice and slowly. And as you can see, all that image is coming off onto the paper. Let me go the other way. Sometimes at this very first start of the pull, you want to be careful that it's all released along this line. I've got no problems here, but sometimes you might just want to ease it with your fingers and make sure that it's all started to come off and being stuck to the paper. There we go. And that's what we ended up with. A pretty clear leaf transfer. You can see those little insect holes there. Quite a nice bit of definition of the veins and the leaves. The stem's nice and clear, these little leaves that were growing out the side. And that is the basic process. And finally, here is a gallery of botanical prints for your inspiration. What I recommend you do is that you start by practicing the basic technique that I've just shown you. And once you're happy and it's all working well, then please go exploring all the other wonderful techniques you can do with plants on a gel plate. There is more than one way to transfer botanical prints, so I recommend that you watch plenty of YouTube videos. Online learning is such a great resource. I'm going to make many more videos to share my ideas with you, so keep your eye on my channel as it grows. In the meantime, have fun printing, and I'll see you next time.